From noob all the way to free.
I'm going to go after death.
Here are 5 levels of hell so you can gauge where you're at and level up from where you are, starting with noob. Most newbies will have a resting heart rate at sleep of 75 beats per minute and over, heart rate variability in the 5 to 20 millisecond range, and a respiratory rate of 19 to 22 breaths per minute. You're probably struggling with life with one of 3 reasons: overeating, anorexia, or substance addiction. Now, anorexia is a bit of a curveball because your resting heart rate will be around 20 to 30 beats per minute. Although we want a low resting heart rate for an efficient heart, this is not your heart being efficient, but rather failing forever.
Feeding her 6 times a day to keep her alive.
To save her life.
While anorexia can be easily fixed with better nutrition, being overweight isn't that simple. Due to high sugar consumption, your brain's a lot smaller.
Take that, Matt Stubby!
Bones getting weaker.
Come on, stand up. Oh, nice and tall.
Your heart is nearly to its end. So the best thing we can do here is to lower our caloric intake to the point we can function life normally. In the noob stage, health as a whole is more about survival. And I promise you, the higher the level, the complicated this health structure gets. But at this point, your single goal is to survive. Now, if you can get to the point where you could do basic stretch movements, walk around without assistance, you're probably ready to be a beginner. Alright, as a beginner, your resting heart rate during sleep is around 65 to 80 beats per minute. Heart rate variability is in between 15 to 40 milliseconds. Now, heart rate variability is relative to age, so here's a better diagram of where you'll be as a beginner with age. Respiratory rate will be about 17 to 18 breaths per minute. As for fitness, if you can walk for more than 20 minutes without rest, you are more than a beginner. However, despite your capabilities, you might not be exercising on a daily basis. If that's the case, I got some good news and bad news.
If you are obese, but you exercise every day, you will live longer than the person who is normal weight who doesn't exercise.
With your diet, you're not overeating or undereating as much as the noob stage, but the content of the diet is still ultra processed. You're probably eating high sodium and sugary snacks, and as a result, you might have a skinny fat body shape. However, you should be able to progress to the intermediate level by changing your foods that have higher volume versus high calories, highly processed foods.
This one's 200 calories, and this one's 200 calories. Which one do you want to eat?
And to answer the last important question, should everybody elevate their health from being a beginner to intermediate? Without a doubt, yes. As an intermediate, your resting heart rate during sleep is around 55 to 75 beats per minute. Heart rate variability is in between 40 to 70 milliseconds. Here's a better diagram with age. And respiratory rate will be about 15 to 16 breaths per minute. As for fitness, you should be able to run a mile, do 10 push-ups, 25 air squats, and 50 sit-ups. With your fitness, you may go to the gym sporadically, trying to shed some pounds and build muscle here and there, but the consistency is missing. With your diet, you're probably dialed in on getting enough protein in and keeping up with your macros to maintain healthy weight, which is great, but you might not be thinking about the quality of your food. It's going to still rely on fast foods, diet sodas, and highly processed foods, and because of that, you might still experience food comas, brain fog, and trouble falling asleep. It is also common at this stage to dabble into the dark arts.
I've done everything on God's green earth. I've been medicated for over a year.
What do you take?
I take right now citalopram, and then to sleep though, I have to take a medicine called quintiapine.
I'm heavily medicated.
Are you? What do you take?
You started using quick fixes like Ozempic for weight loss, Adderall for mental focus, melatonin for sleep, caffeine for energy, antidepressants for better mood. It makes you perform, but you're heavily reliant on them, and side effects starts kicking in.
The reality is people do die from withdrawal. They die from the consequences of dehydration, which gives you a sense of just how bad the symptoms can be, that people can have such profound diarrhea and vomiting that they can actually get dehydrated to the point that they die from it.
This is serious, and as a caffeine addict myself, I know how hard it is to quit. The method I used to quit was lowering the dose little by little every day to doing it once every other day to once every 3 days, all the way to a week to quit. And even then, I still experienced minor withdrawal symptoms. Typically, acknowledging these issues and focusing on staying consistent with your diet and exercise is a sign you'll be in the advanced level very soon. At advanced level, your resting heart rate during sleep is around 50 to 60 beats per minute. Heart rate variability is in between 50 to 90 milliseconds. Here's a better diagram with age. And respiratory rate will be about 15 breaths per minute. As for fitness, you should be able to run with 3 miles, do 20 push-up burpees, 50 jump squats, 100 sit-ups, and a couple pull-ups. Most likely at this level, you're focusing heavily on cardio-based workouts or weightlifting, and you might even be an elite level athlete on one of these two categories. As for diet, not only you're focusing on your macronutrients, but you also incorporate your vegetables and supplements for micronutrients, and you know how to have self-control once it comes to snacking. However, it is possible you might have a little bit of a caffeine addiction, and despite avoiding sugar, we are using a lot of highly processed zero-calorie substances to make the food taste good. Bodybuilding diets would be a great example for it.
For every one of these things, which is 2 cups, you want to put 2 packets of sugar to it. The more sugar you put in, the better it tastes to a point. So put as much as you want, just keep loading it up. Don't worry, it's not gonna kill you, it's not gonna give you cancer.
However, it will cause inflammation, and if you want to function without any brain fog, you do want to graduate from artificial sweetness. Health as a structure in this level becomes exercise, nutrition, and sleep. Should we try to level up to elite? And the answer is, it depends on your goal. There's a gray line on being an athlete and being healthy. If you're an athlete, performance is your primary goal over health. So some of the next couple steps that elite levels would apply, like caloric restriction, will not apply to you, and it might actually hinder your performance. However, if your goal is health and want to maximize mental and physical clarity, the next level elite will be for you. At elite level, your resting heart rate during sleep is around 45 to 55 beats per minute. Heart rate variability is 90 milliseconds and over. Here's a better diagram with age, and respiratory rate will be about 15 breaths per minute. As for fitness, you should be able to do the splits, touch your toes without bending your knees, be able to run at 120 to 135 beats per minute heart rate for an hour, and have a decent amount of strength for your joints. But to most effectively maintain elite status, we have to follow the 5 power laws.
So one is don't smoke. Okay. That takes around 13 years of life off. The second power law is exercise 6 hours a week. And so that's, the nuances are 4.5 hours in zone 2 through 4. So that's your heart rate of like 120-ish through 150, 160. And then 90 minutes above, 159-ish. Depends upon your chronological age. Okay. Number 3 is a blueprint or Mediterranean-like diet.
This is what Brian Johnson means by a Mediterranean diet.
A lot of vegetables, lentils, berries, nuts, seeds. I personally am a vegetarian. I'm vegan, but people can do meat. It's fine. Basically, it's a diet that excludes junk food, fast food,
packaged food,
sugars. Yeah, just like trying to avoid the bad stuff.
At this level, it's not just about what you put in your body, but everything becomes calculated starting from how much you eat.
So the recommended daily allowance for someone like me is around 2,500 calories a day. I eat 2,000.
To when you eat.
First meal of the day with this. So I do the Green Giant, the pills, workout, then this. Then Nutty Pudding an hour later, then my third meal like 2 hours later. And then I finish by 11 a.m. or so. Number 4 is a BMI of 18.5 to 22.5.
However, BMI might be a little controversial due to the following reason.
If you just look at the BMI, I'm considered overweight.
The index did not take into consideration muscle mass, body composition, or even general health.
And this is the last power law.
Little to no alcohol, and then prioritizing sleep.
Not only you're prioritizing sleep, but it becomes more about sleep quality.
Try to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every day. Give yourself about 8 hours to be in bed. Make the room as dark as possible, as cold as possible, and detach yourself from anything stimulating for 2 hours before bed, and try to not eat or drink any alcohol for 3 hours before bed.
Health as a structure in this level becomes optimizing your heart health, brain health, bone health, gut health, hormonal health like testosterone and estrogen levels. At this elite level, we try different things out to see how we feel. We might even experiment with different diets like carnivore, keto, or paleo, and it leads to the core question, should we try and level up to be a freak? And the real answer to that is, can I? Because the next level is not going to be that easy.
I'm going to go after death.
At freak, your resting heart rate during sleep is around 40 to 45 beats per minute. You doubled or tripled your heart rate variability since you first started, and respiratory rate will be about 12 to 13 breaths per minute. But what separates the freak from elites is that your health orientates around these 5 dimensions of health. In the first dimension, physical health, there are 14 elements they measure. Starting with heart health, you'll use a wearable to track HRV, resting heart rate, and respiratory rate. But on top of that, you'll take a VO2 max test regularly for cardiovascular fitness, a blood pressure cuff for blood pressure, blood test for cholesterol levels. Based on these, you will adjust your training, diet, and sleep. For lung health, Freak Levels will use a spirometry to access lung capacity and improve them by breathing exercises. Using diaphragmatic breathing and breath hold exercises are used to improve respiratory efficiency. For musculoskeletal health, Freaks will have experts conducting DEXA scans for bone density, constant strength tests for joint mobility assessment. For brain health, Freaks will constantly check up for white matter hyperintensities, pineal calcification for neuroplasticity, and measure ventricular volume to assess cognitive capabilities. Based on these stats, they adjust your intake for omega-3s, avoid fluoride-based toothpaste and tap water, and constantly mindful of their posture for maximum blood flow to the brain. For metabolic health, Freaks will first take a food intolerance test and then use a glucose monitor to track your insulin sensitivity and inflammation. And while elites will guess and avoid processed food and sugar, Freaks will measure how much they eat even on the non-processed healthy food that they should be eating. For digestive health, they analyze their gut microbiome by monitoring their bowel. A healthy gut impacts energy levels, so to optimize that, Freaks will get data on how much prebiotic, fibers, or hydration they need for the day. Then endocrine health manages hormones that regulate metabolism growth, sleep, and stress response. Freaks will use blood tests to see thyroid, adrenal, and sex hormone levels and monitor circadian rhythms through sleep tracking. Then they'll take care of their immune health. A strong immune health will protect us from infections and disease, so they measure immunity through white blood cell counts, C-reactive proteins for inflammation, and autoimmune markers. And by measuring those levels, they figure out what vitamins they're deficient on. For skin health, they use multispectral imaging to assess your skin damage and reverse skin damage through facial revolumizing, Tixels, and intense pulse-like therapy. This is probably why Freaks will always preach get your antioxidants and polyphenols. Then they also take care of oral health. It plays a huge role on our gut microbiome. They go through a water pick, floss, brushing routine. Reproductive health like estrogen and testosterone are also crucial, and I don't think I need to explain why, but Health Freaks will go through hormonal blood tests, fertility tests, and adjust their diets based on that, perhaps incorporating pasture-raised eggs to boost their reproductive health. Then they also measure their kidney health and liver health. Our kidney and liver prevents toxins from building up, so Health Freaks will measure enzyme levels, ultrasound for liver structure, and liver function tests. Now, while Health Freaks will take care of their physical health, they will put the same amount of energy to their internal health, which is the second dimension. To very broadly explain it, they regulate stress by sense of purpose, personal growth, and creating a positive environment for themselves. To give you an example, for me, I prioritize my 5 F's: fitness for health, family, friends, fun, and finance. And finance is mainly for freedom. And anything that is not contributing to those 5 factors, I will always say no. This will be different for everybody, but awakening the awareness aspect is the key to unlock the second dimension. While physical and mental health can be somewhat controlled by our behaviors, Freak Levels will also try and control their genetics. They will check for genetic predisposition, do stem cell therapy, and check cellular health through telomere lengths, autophagy, and mitochondrial function. Because of these data, Health Freaks would often go on a caloric restriction, sauna, and cold exposure. Now, going to the fourth dimension, it will be environment. Setting up their ergonomics, sleeping environments like bed quality, room temperature, noise, and light exposure, and managing clean air quality becomes part of their life. And the last dimension that Freaks will take care of is safety, like preventing injuries, sun protection, and even as going as far as choosing your neighbors.
The likelihood of you dying in a car crash or crossing the street, or the example I gave you, which is statistically you're a lot more likely to get mugged if you walk. By the way, you can correlate it to the number of minutes you spend on the street in a bad neighborhood, right?
Now, I know this level isn't for everybody, but the good news is just by exercising, eating a clean, non-processed diet at limited quantities, and sleeping, you'll be able to get to the top 1% really fast without being a freak. And it's also important to realize that there are huge genetic differences when it comes to our health, and age obviously plays a huge factor. So we might all be in different starting points, but just remember, anybody that puts in the work will be able to live a fulfilling, healthy life.